Greetings everybody, Redbeard here for the August 17th, 2016 edition of the Midweek Update. It's being reported that there will be a 2-hour pre-show plus a 4-hour main card for SummerSlam this Sunday. In other words, I hope you brought the super absorbent adult diapers. It's going to be a long show. Number 5 story of the week is that Alberto Del Rio has been suspended for 30 days due to a wellness policy violation. This is brand new stuff. This is fresh off the presses, as they would say. This came out just as we were about to begin filming the show here this week. It doesn't quite make sense to us why people are getting wellness policy violations at this point in time, given the fact that you've got someone like Brock Lesnar who has been tested and been rendered positive for whatever substance he was taking under UFC, and yet the full-time guys like Del Rio have to still continue to subscribe to the wellness policy. But be that as it may, it has come out. He's gone for 30 days. This, of course, is right on the bridge of him having had a match last night on SmackDown with John Cena. So apparently this was something that they didn't know about, that it's more or less changed things after what they had already booked was in place for the show last night. And now he's gone for the next 30 days. It's interesting because the fact that not only is there a clause apparently built into Del Rio's contract with WWE that he has an opt-out option coming up in September. Of course, at the end of this 30 days, it'll be well into September by that point in time, so he could leave if he wanted to. For that matter, he could leave right now if he wanted to and just face whatever repercussions contractually he would, but still, he had that going, and then it also has turned out that people who were very sleuth-eyed in terms of looking at the footage from last night's show noticed that he was wearing El Patron gimmick in his trunks that he had on. Of course, Alberto El Patron was what he was known as whenever he was with AAA, Lucha Underground, and on the independent scene. That kind of has made some people wondering, okay, was this the final nail in the coffin that says, alright, I'm done, I'm leaving, this second run with you guys was a mistake? Which has kind of been what we've gathered all along, because the fact that there have been rumors for a long time that he was not happy with his standing in the company. Of course, you have added into this the notion that he and Paige are a romantic item. Paige has been gone for X number of weeks now. People don't really know what's going on with her. Some people say it's an injury, some people say she's got backstage heat. We don't really know, but it does kind of feed one into the other and saying, okay, well, both of these talents could be gone from the company, or they may come back. We just don't know. But it's kind of feeling like they don't have a whole lot of reason to hang around. Both of them are popular enough that they could go somewhere else and really be, I'd say, respectably paid for whatever they would contribute to some other promotion. But we'll have to wait and see. However, it does appear that Del Rio will be gone from WWE for at least the next 30 days. Number 4 story of the week is that it appears No Mercy and King of the Ring will be returning to WWE programming. This is at least partially confirmed because of the fact that the King of the Ring has been something that they have sort of loosely held on to, but they did apply for a trademark back in the later portion of July for that slogan, so that's something that they can at least do something with if they choose to. No Mercy, on the other hand, appears to be pretty much confirmed because it's been added to the slate of pay-per-views. It will be a SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view, so that kind of gives you a sense of who might be involved there going forward. Of course, we're waiting to see what happens with the title picture on that brand. There's all kinds of things that could be coming down the pipe in terms of a tag team championship, women's division. We do know that the championship picture, as far as the 2 upper belts, will of course be the WWE Championship and also the Intercontinental Championship, who could be vying for them by the time the No Mercy pay-per-view rolls around. That's anybody's guess, but it does appear that WWE is preparing to do something with these 2 properties. King of the Ring is something that, of course, was a long-running tournament that was very popular back in the day. They've not done it in a number of years here since Wade Barrett was the winner of a program that they did, I think, maybe 2 years ago. But it'll be interesting to see if they bring it back around, if it's a full-scale pay-per-view, or if it's just maybe a one-off type of thing, or if this is maybe just something they want to use to have in their bag of tricks for promoting whatever down the line. But No Mercy is interesting because of the name. In getting away from a lot of the more edgy stuff, you don't have, the other programs that they had back in the day, which were really indicative of a more edgy product, but No Mercy, I guess, is on the cusp of being that. But still, it's interesting to see them bring back that one amongst all the other options that they have. But it does appear as though they're expanding the options that they have, reclaiming some old properties, and definitely moving towards potentially using those in the future. Number 3 story of the week has to do with a Real Fiasco that popped up this weekend in Dudley, Georgia. This was an event promoted by Dublin Sports Entertainment and AIWF, of course, is the Allied Independent Wrestling Federations. I don't really know where to begin with this, other than just to describe what happened. For a long time now, we've been seeing posters get floated around for this event. It seemed like a really wingding thing because of the fact that they had everybody from Arn Anderson on down to various ECW guys involved with this show who were going to be coming in to participate in a Legends Fest, a fan fest type of thing, if you will. It just seemed like there was a lot of gathered talent for this because you had names like Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Paul Orndorff, all the way down to guys like Too Cold Scorpio and whatnot who were going to be here for the show. And I hate to say that it felt like it was going to be too good to be true, but it kind of did. And that was one of the reasons why we didn't pursue looking into it in terms of maybe being an option for something that we might attend. But be that as it may, it turned out that the venue for this event, as it's been described anyway, was something of an abandoned high school. No air conditioning, very little in the way of accoutrements for creature comforts for fans or talent who were on hand. And the worst part of it is that apparently this was put together by a promoter, quote-unquote promoter, by the name of Greg Green, a gentleman we've never really heard of before and probably will never hear of again because of the fact that he ran this event with zero financial backing whatsoever. He, for whatever reason, decided to come to the venue and continue on as if everything was fine, and he had no money, or at least very little money anyway. Definitely not enough to cover the payroll of what he had accumulated in terms of saying, okay, you guys are coming to the show and being a part of this event. The talent, from what we have learned, kind of got the first impression that something was wrong when they went to begin checking into their hotels, and it turned out that the credit card that had been left for them to use as a way of paying for them was being declined. It went further from there, and that when they arrived at the venue, it was in the state that it was. And then plus you have a promoter who's being shady and not really communicating to the talent and saying, okay, I'll get you your money a little bit here. Just a bad scene overall. You hate it for the fact that this puts a black eye on independent wrestling, but because of the fact that there were people who paid money to see this show, to be a part of this event, and it winds up being some shyster who's trying to take them for whatever money he can. The worst part of this, of course, is that you have another, I'll go ahead and say, foul individual being able to participate in the world of professional wrestling. There, of course, are ways of keeping these type of people out, but at the same time, you just have to wonder what legends like Arn Anderson and Del Wilkes the Patriot and some of the others were doing at an event like this, seeing as how none of them really got paid in advance. I would have thought that would have been a requirement to book people like this, but I guess not. But at any rate, bad scene. It's only going to get worse for promoter Greg Green. Here I'm using that word loosely again, but he is more than likely going to be charged with some type of, I'd say at the very least, for issuing fraudulent checks, because the story goes that he was not only signing checks from his own personal checkbook, but from checkbooks that he had stolen from his parents. Yeah, it reeks of desperation. Of course, if I had been thrown into the back of a car being driven by the Patriot and Arn Anderson, I probably would be doing whatever I could to make those guys happy as well. But the picture that we used in the header for this image, or for the header for this story, was of the promoter, Greg Green, being basically held captive by Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful. That image in and of itself is just remarkable. But this goes to show you, folks, if you want to get in this business, meet your payroll. If you can do nothing else, at least do that. You'll avoid a whole lot of pain and suffering, at least for yourself, if no one else. Number 2 story of the week is our roundup of TNA wrestling related news. Of course, we were on hand this past weekend for a couple of their tapings down in Orlando. We're going to be putting that footage together and hopefully having it out sometime within the next few days for episode 28 of the Rasslin Redbeard main show. But I want to go through a couple of things that we learned about not only at those tapings, but in advance of them as well. It has turned out, and I'm reading through my notes here because there's a lot of stuff happening right now in the world of TNA. We're not going to call it Dixieland anymore either, because Dixie, and right off the top here, is no longer president of the company. It's turned out that by virtue of some of his investments and by virtue of what Dixie Carter described as his prerogative in trying to develop the company, that Billy Corgan has been named the president of TNA Wrestling. That's just crazy. I still want to say this is the most insane thing ever, in that the guy that I used to listen to, who was the lead singer of Smashing Pumpkins, is now head of one of the top couple of professional wrestling companies in the world. That just blows my mind. But it does appear, though, that Dixie will still have some role within the company. It looks like more of an ambassador type of role from what it's been described to us. It feels as though she's going to be involved with some of the, trying to shake hands, kiss babies type of stuff. They need to keep her as far away from the on-screen product as possible, in my opinion, though, because she's somewhat of a burden, in my opinion. The more you can get her away from it, the better. The other stuff that's happening around there are all kind of rumors about what might be changing now that Billy is in charge, more or less. There's rumors about the internal structures of the Impact Zone could be changing, the way it's laid out could be changing. They've already, of course, if you've been keeping track of what's going on here the past couple of days, they've already done away with the King of the Mountain title and have brought out what they're referring to as the TNA or Impact Wrestling Grand Championship, which is going to be an interesting thing to see come to fruition because of the style of matches that this is going to involve. It's apparently more like a MMA King of Sport, which is a British program style match where it involves rounds and judges. Not sure how the American audience is going to take to that, but it'll be interesting to see what happens regardless. The belt is a little bit weird looking, I will say, for this division, but it at least is indicative of Impact as a whole, and is definitely something that nobody's going to be able to replicate on the independent scene and say, okay, look, this is our world title. Not happening anymore, not with that one anyway. The other couple of big notes that came out of this past couple of days are not only that you had a major acquisition, as they were calling it, in the form of Aaron Rex, who was formerly known as Damian Sandow in World Wrestling Entertainment, but you've also got the announcement that Bound for Glory will be taking place October 2nd there in the Impact Zone in Orlando, Florida. So a lot going on in the place formerly known as Dixieland, now known as Corgan City. Yeah, I just came up with that off the top of my head. That kind of sucks. Don't run with that, please. No. Just let's call it TNA. Yeah, TNA's still good. Although there have been rumors they might be doing away with TNA as well, so it might just be Impact Wrestling by the time you and I talk again. We just don't know. And the number one story of the week. Holy crap, that's a lot of wrestling. As we inferred in the open of the program this week, there is a lot of wrestling on tap this week for WWE fans. Of course, you've had 3 hours of Raw, you've had 2 hours of SmackDown, plus maybe an hour of whatever the program is that they taped in front of SmackDown. Plus, you've got 2 hours worth of NXT. In terms of the Brooklyn special coming up this Saturday, you've got NXT tonight. That's an hour. The Cruiserweight Classic, that's an hour tonight. Plus the notion that there's going to be a 2-hour pre-show in front of SummerSlam, plus a 4-hour main card. I can't even add all that up. That is just a huge amount of content that they are putting out there this week. And God bless those guys who are on the roster, because they are working multiple matches in some cases, and I'm sure they're all going to be worn out come Sunday afternoon. There's got to be a lot of 5-hour energy, if not some other type of pharmacology being spread around that locker room right now in order to keep these guys going. But just a lot going on, a whole lot going on. And I don't want to complain about that as a wrestling fan, but at the same time, it's almost like you have to put a full quarter of your day, almost every day, into just watching the show in order to keep current with what's happening there. But be that as it may, we'll run through a couple of the highlights of the cards that are coming up this weekend. You have, of course, the NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2 special. that will be highlighted by the main event of Samoa Joe versus Shinsuke Nakamura for the NXT Championship. Samoa Joe, of course, is the champion in NXT now. That should be a fantastic match. Of course, I'm expecting NXT Brooklyn TakeOver 2 to be fantastic top to bottom, but the other top of the card match there will be the Revival as tag team champions defending against the combination of Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Then you've got other matches on that card. Asuka will be defending her title against Bayley. I think you've also got the possibility of some other undercard features on there. No Way Jose and Austin Aries. Can't think of who else is on there, but still, this is going to be a really strong card. I think Bobby Roode is taking on, I can't pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try butchering it, but it's the, he was a luchador, but we'll move on from there. SummerSlam card. Lots going on here. Again, 2-hour pre-show, 4-hour main card. The main events will be, of course, Brock Lesnar versus Randy Orton, Finn Balor versus Seth Rollins for the yet-to-be-debuted WWE Universal Championship. Dying to see what that thing looks like. I'm just really curious to see what it is, and I'm going to be a little disappointed if it just winds up being a red versus a blue version of the title going forward. I think they can do a lot better than that, but you also have Dean Ambrose versus Dolph Ziggler for the WWE Championship. John Cena versus AJ Styles continuing their feud. Something that's picked up a lot of interest, I think more because of the work of Lana and Rusev is the match between Roman Reigns and Rusev. That's got some interest in my opinion going forward there. Then you have a tag team championship match where the New Day will defend against the Club, and there's a lot more on the card there as well in terms of the undercard. Stuff that I don't even have in my notes, but that's going to be there regardless. Like I say, a ton of stuff. Lots of reasons to be happy if you're a wrestling fan who follows WWE. And it's not only the case for the WWE product, it's also the case for the independent scene in this part of the world. There's always seemingly one weekend out of the month where almost every promotion runs a show, and that is this weekend. From the 19th all the way through the 21st, there are shows happening all over the place. North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina, it's happening everywhere this weekend. There are at least 13 shows. 13 shows. Whew. I don't ever want to complain as a wrestling fan about having a lot of options, but there's a lot of wrestling happening this weekend. But as we say, 13 shows, plenty of opportunities for you to get out there and be involved in the scene. One we want to highlight, of course, is the fact that WrestleForce is returning for the first time in, I think, 6 months. They had some bad luck with some events earlier this year that wound up having to be canceled. They are back. They're running in Aiken, South Carolina now, so we will see what happens there. One other thing worth pointing out, actually two other things worth pointing out on top of everything else that we've already mentioned. Ring of Honor has a pay-per-view this Saturday, and I believe Evolve is running their 66 and 67 cards as well, somewhere in there. Just crazy top to bottom. If you managed to watch all of this weekend, God bless you, really and truly. But we're at the point in the show where we like to highlight what's going on locally. As I mentioned, there are 13 shows happening this weekend, so let's go ahead and roll those posters. We'll be back shortly to wrap up the show. have it, our rundown of the events that are coming your way this weekend. If you are a promoter or wrestler or in some way involved with a wrestling promotion and you didn't see your poster in that segment of the show, it's because we didn't know about it. We do our best to peruse social media to keep abreast of what's happening in this part of the world, but we do miss things. That said, if you would send us your materials, we'd be glad to get it on the show here for you. Also be glad to put it out on the Rasslin with Redbeard Facebook page. So a big part of what we do, of course, is promoting local talent and events in this area. Do want to take a moment to point out a little video that we have on the channel here. There is a highlight package of some material of Cedric Alexander's career from the Mid-Atlantic scene. Go ahead and check that out if you would be so inclined. We're pretty proud of that piece because it's footage that I myself shot, and it's turned out pretty good, I'd say. But check that out if you have an opportunity. If you enjoyed the program here this week, go ahead and click that like button. Lets us know that we did a good job. And if you really enjoy what's on the channel, go ahead and click subscribe. That way you'll be the first to know whenever we've uploaded something new, like match videos, midweek updates, or of course the all-important Rasslin with Redbeard main show. Enjoy your weekend, fellas. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next week.